5 to 6 miles to the southeast of town, if not a little bit more, as this possible tornado continues to trail off to the north and east. And just kind of highlighting the Dean community. These are, again, relatively rural sections, but there are still some towns and communities in the path of this storm. Here's County Road 42, and you can see some of the surrounding streets. If these roads sound familiar to you, make sure that you're taking proper tornado precautions. Interior portion of your home, away from windows and doors, lowest level. Put as many walls between you and the outside as possible, as the radar again updates. And now moving toward the Enon community. If I am pronouncing those incorrectly, my apologies. Been here for a long time, but to be honest with you, we don't really have, we haven't had a lot of tornado warnings move through this particular part of Drew County in recent memory. It's usually from Monticello and points a little bit farther northward, and that's just kind of a law of averages kind of thing. You can see the College Heights area as you start moving closer to UAM along 425. This storm again is kind of south and east of 425 and moving away from the highway. So if you're traveling along Highway 425 from, say, Bastrop to Monticello on your way to Little Rock or the opposite direction, just be aware of this increasingly strong storm. I would say that the rotation has kind of picked up here in the last 10 to 15 minutes or so, and thus the tornado warning that is currently in effect. And you can see as the warning polygon kind of gets trimmed away a little bit, the National Weather Service in Little Rock has updated this message. Obviously, Alex, there are some other storms that we will continue to keep an eye on, but this is the primary concern in the short term.
Right, there are severe thunderstorm warnings that have been issued further south. There is one that has just recently been issued for LaSalle Parish until 7:45 p.m. But as aforementioned, the one in Drew County, Arkansas is our main concern, and it's moving northeastward at 55 miles per hour. So the communities of Reed and McGee, it could be in your location by 7:07, 7:10 p.m. at the soonest. So you don't have much time, and if you're in the eastern portion of the county within that warning box, to get in your safe place. If you need a reminder of where that's at, that's always going to be the most interior section of any building you are in, whether or not that is a building not your home, or if you're at the store, if you're watching this on our live stream on Ark-La-Miss.com and on Facebook, you need to go into the centermost portion of that building and also put as many walls between you and the outside as possible, away from any windows. A few specifics here, again, is just south of Monticello as of this time, and really in the Deanne location, as well as Enon, as aforementioned, as well Ott Pace Road, Enon Dean Road, and Collins. Those are all locations and road names that if that sounds familiar to you, you need to be in those safe places. Again, this is a smaller community location, so if you know anyone that happens to be there, give them a call, make sure that they are staying weather aware. We focused a lot of this week's forecasting in the Monroe and West Monroe location, but the majority of the Ark-La-Miss was included in our level 3 enhanced risk. No one was ignored per se when we talk about severe weather, and it has certainly come to light for that, as well as we're tracking the front as a whole. Again, just as a reminder, this warning in particular goes until 7:15 p.m. for Drew County, Arkansas, and just southeast of Monticello, and is moving northeast at 55 miles per hour.
All right, also on that note, Alex, as you continue to keep an eye on that storm as it continues off to the north and east, we are watching this severe thunderstorm warning in north central Louisiana, but there's also a new severe thunderstorm warning that's just been issued for portions of LaSalle Parish. That goes until 7:45. Switch over to a different radar vantage point rather quickly. We are also monitoring an area of rotation to the north of the current tornado warning across another section of Drew County. So again, that's a concern as well. This severe thunderstorm capable of producing 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts, but also showing some signs of rotation as it moves to the north and east near Gina. So for folks in Gina, you are in the path of this severe thunderstorm warned storm, but this storm has at times shown signs of rotation, meaning that a tornado could form rather rapidly. And so I just want to urge folks, that's your call to action now, is to be in your safe place, as we've mentioned. Now let's go back over. I know that the radar doesn't look like much, but we're switching between multiple different radar vantage points to go back to the National Weather Service radar in Little Rock, which probably has the best look. And you can see what I'm talking about. This area of rotation here that is kind of north and east of Monticello, that's actually moving out of our viewing area. area, and our technical viewing area ends with the Monticello, or excuse me, the Drew County, Deshay County line. So as this storm moves out, it'll eventually move into the adjacent viewing areas that really are encompassed and kind of carried by the Little Rock and Memphis areas as well. So those are two areas of concern, but the primary concern is obviously within the tornado warning that is now southwest of Highway 278. 278 goes kind of from Camden through Monticello and then trails off to the east here. So for folks, if you're traveling east, make sure that you make phone calls, send a text message, let folks know what's going on in these particular areas. Alex is also keeping tabs, excuse me, on those storms in northern Louisiana. So if we see anything concerning with those, obviously we'll let you know about it. But there's the tornado warning as it sits for right now for about another 25 minutes for southeastern sections of Drew County. This eventually, in theory, depending on the storm path, could clip northern sections of Chico County. We kind of get into that tricky spot where the National Weather Service in Little Rock is issuing warnings for this storm currently. If it were to move into northern Chico County, that would be the National Weather Service in Jackson's responsibility. So again, there's some kind of red tape semantics that go around with that, but it's not really going to make that much of a difference, because if a warning's needed, a warning's going to be issued. So again, that's our primary focus is for areas just east of Old Dermot Road, and you can see that kind of winds down, like I said, to the south and east of the Enon community. You can see the Comento community. Here's County Roads 42 and 44. We say a lot of this stuff not because a lot of folks will be familiar with these areas, but if they are familiar, if you hear a road that sounds relatively familiar, then obviously you need to, your ears need to perk up and you need to make sure that you're in your safe place. On top of that, I also want to urge folks that are watching us on our live stream that live streams are an encompassed round of video, and so sometimes folks tend to scroll back and maybe kind of check on something that we said earlier or something like that. Make sure that you're scrolled all the way forward and you're watching live. Live on a digital feed is still going to be somewhat delayed, whether it be by 30 seconds, 45 seconds, a minute. So start thinking ahead. Think ahead of these storms. If you're along 278 east of Monticello in eastern sections of Drew County, then you need to be taking tornado safety precautions immediately and be in your safe place. Also continuing to keep an eye on that northernmost storm, this area right here. Again, it's set to move out of our viewing area in the next probably 10 minutes or so, but it is something worth watching is that this particular storm, and I'll switch back over to our traditional, what we call reflectivities mode, but just basically the normal radar mode that you would see on a daily basis. And I also want to stress that if there is a tornado forming or has formed south of Highway 278, it would be virtually impossible to see due to the amounts of heavy rainfall that are wrapping into this storm, and that goes to the same for that northernmost circulation as it moves to the east. If you're looking for a tornado, you probably won't see it until it's too late to take cover. So again, just want folks to get that lead time, if you will, and get to their safe place. Also of note, and we haven't really said this a lot, but I do want to draw attention to it, is that these storms are typically moving relatively fast. Some of them moving 45, 50 miles an hour, others moving 55, 60 miles per hour. So that's going to also kind of cut down on your lead time, so to speak, as the storms trail off to the east. Like I said, this one eventually out of our viewing area, but with additional storms across north central Louisiana. So as we hit this point, I just want to kind of go back to our live radar and then also go back to our home screen, if you will, and reset what we're dealing with across much of the Ark-La-Miss region. The tornado warning again in effect till 7:15 for southeastern sections of Drew County, as that storm will eventually move out of our area. There's still the possibility of some stronger storm potential in far northeastern Louisiana, right along the Mississippi Valley, although these storms really had probably the best environment to work with today, and in all honesty, never really got overly organized. And then you've got another cluster of storms across northeastern Louisiana, south of Columbia, generally along Highway 165. All of that moving east, and there's a severe thunderstorm warning with that in LaSalle Parish until 7:45. I'll move these boxes out of the way so you can see them just a little bit better as we kind of recap everything. The storm that is now generally south of Ruston includes a severe thunderstorm warning for Jackson, Lincoln, Union, and Ouachita parishes until 7:30. Damaging wind gusts seem to be the primary concern there. And on that note, I would expect lead time for these storms, as these clusters of storms start moving toward Monroe and West Monroe, I would expect about another 30 to 45 minutes, maybe up to an hour. But the reason I say that is because we had the crew of Janus Mardi Gras Parade just an hour or two ago. A lot of folks tend to kind of hang out and about around the parade route and continue the party, more or less. And so I want folks that if you know of folks that are still along the parade route, or maybe still out and about enjoying the evening festivities, make those phone calls and let them know what's going on. These storms, again, relatively fast moving in any one particular area, so I just want folks to make sure that they are informed, and then they can make their proper decisions in terms of taking shelter accordingly. But the main concern, the reason that we're joining you on air right now, is the tornado warned storm moving through southeastern Drew County. Again, somewhat lower populated areas, does not include Monticello, and we've been kind of barking that since we joined you on air. But I just want to stress for folks traveling east along and south of Highway 278, there's really two circulations. This one moving out of Drew County, and then this one, which is also moving pretty quickly toward the Drew County line. Once this storm clears into DeShay County, generally thinking that we'll be able to hopefully end our on-air coverage, but that's, of course, assuming that we don't have additional tornado warnings kind of waiting in the wings back to the south and west. But this potential tornado is generally right along and south, should be crossing 278, I would say, within the next 2 or 3 minutes. So if you are driving along 278, obviously the shelter of last refuge, if you will, is to stop the car and go find a low-lying area like a ditch or a culvert and protect yourself from flying debris. I really always try to urge as much as possible to not let yourself get into that kind of situation. I would urge you that if you can find a sturdy structure, a grocery store, a gas station, whatever, it's better than being in your car. So again, I would rather folks think ahead of time and let this storm clear. It's moving relatively quickly, but make sure that you're off the roadways and sheltered appropriately from any of these storms. Same really goes for the severe thunderstorm warnings today. If you were out and about this afternoon, you know the winds are howling across the Ark-La-Miss, or at least they were earlier today. We were seeing wind gusts up to 40, 45 miles per hour in non-thunderstorm wind gusts. These are just the pressure gradient winds associated with this powerful storm system. So if you think about that, if the winds are that strong near the surface, they're that much stronger as you move higher in the atmosphere. So you get these stronger storms to translate some of those stronger winds down to ground level. They hit the ground and they spread out, and that's what leads to some gusty to damaging winds, maybe in the 58 to 60, 65 mile an hour range, with some of those stronger severe thunderstorm warnings off to our south and west. Latest radar swipe still has that area of rotation right along Highway 278, moving in or near the Reed and McGee areas, the Reed community, and then obviously McGee is in sections of DeShay County, and again moving out of our viewing area. So here's the Drew County line, and there's our possible tornado, which at times exhibited even concern of maybe having a debris ball associated with it, meaning that there was the potential that it was lofting debris into the atmosphere and the radar was able to see it. We didn't show that to you, but it was something that we were watching just a smidge earlier. So that tornado warning, again, for about another 15 minutes or so. I know we're hitting the top of the 7 o'clock hour, so just want to draw attention to that particular storm as we also kind of make the bird's eye view back across the entire region. Alex, as you continue to monitor these other storms, well, there's a new severe thunderstorm warning out. This one is for Madison and East Carroll parishes, it would appear. I don't think it includes any of West Carroll, but
that doesn't.
That is a new severe thunderstorm warning. There it is for East Carroll and Madison parishes until 7:45. I would assume that this storm has a tornado tag with it, meaning that these storms have the potential of producing tornadoes. We talk about that a lot, but basically severe thunderstorm warnings are issued, and when they're issued by the National Weather Service, they basically denote what the greatest hazards are within that storm. If it's a severe thunderstorm warning, typically it's going to be quarter-sized hail or larger, and wind gusts of 58 miles an hour or stronger, typically 60 miles an hour or stronger. But also at times severe thunderstorm warnings are issued, and we call it the tornado tag, but basically they add at the bottom of that hazard, they basically essentially tell you that a tornado could form and is possible, meaning that the storm perhaps at times has shown signs of rotation or a structure that could produce a tornado, and so it obviously means that a warning may be needed at some point, and that you need to be prepared to take cover. Typically, severe thunderstorm warnings, you're going to shelter just like you would with a tornado warning. Lowest level, interior portion, think interior hallway, closet, bathroom. I always urge folks, if you can grab a pillow or a helmet or put shoes on just to kind of protect yourself from flying debris and things that, and fully acknowledging that you are preparing for the worst case scenario. In most instances, tornadoes really impact a very small area. Even severe thunderstorm wind gusts impact a very small area. These warnings are broad and over a larger area to kind of account for any room for error, if you will, and so it's just our that's our philosophy, is just kind of broaden the approach in terms of these warnings being issued as they're issued by the National Weather Service. There's our possible circulation now getting north of 278. That's why we kind of urge folks to think ahead of time. Radar sweeps from the National Weather Service's offices typically come about every 5 to 6 minutes or so. So when you get that new radar update, typically it is moved pretty substantially, especially with these fast-moving storms. And this one will be crawling out of Drew County probably in the next radar swipe or two, probably the next 5-10 minutes as we approach the 7:15 deadline to this severe thunderstorm warning. Alex has a few areas circled on her screen over there. Let's take it over to her and see what she has to say.
So we do have two areas of rotation to be concerned with, one associated with that tornado warning that was already issued that is expected to expire at 7:15. I would not be surprised if a secondary tornado warning were to be issued for both of the areas of circulation circled there just south of Dumas and east of McGee. Again, this is exiting Drew County as of this time, so we're keeping an eye on it as it does exit. And there's that tornado warning as just mentioned. So it does have Drew County, the eastern and northeastern sections of Drew County included in that until 7:45 p.m. And we are still monitoring both areas of rotation as they are exiting the entire county off towards the east and northeast. So again, just a few more road names and street names. That is again the Reed community just north of 278. And this entire portion of the line as a whole is moving northeastward at 60 miles per hour. It's moving fairly quickly. It's one of our faster moving segments that we have been watching throughout the course of the day. And again, this is for Drew County, Arkansas until 7:45 p.m. And not only are we keeping an eye on this area, but also towards the south near areas in Jackson's office's location, and that is going to be near Tallulah along I-20. There is a smaller area of rotation between Delhi and Tallulah. It is not tornado warned, but it is a tornado tag that we're keeping an eye on.
I have a feeling that's about to change, Alex. Just considering what we're seeing on radar west of Tallulah, and that storm's also strengthened considerably in a short period of time, and I basically have the same radar overlay as Alex just had. I just have a different radar output, but yeah, right along I-20, and there's the tornado warning. So new tornado warning is issued for portions of Madison and East Carroll parishes until 8 p.m. tonight. I will go ahead and read the National Weather Service status message right here. And again, still keeping an eye on the tornado warned storms in Drew County, but those are generally moving out of our area. Severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado over Tyndall, moving east, or 8 miles east of Delhi, moving northeast at 55 miles per hour. Now, the tornado warning itself does not include Tallulah, but it does include areas like Waverly just east of Delhi. I believe it's 4 miles east of Delhi along I-20, but it's this area right here that we're watching as this storm has intensified, and we talked about it earlier about how this storm and this cluster of storms had never really taken advantage of the environment that it was given, and in the last few radar swipes has really started to intensify. So this is a new tornado warning, East Carroll and Madison parishes until 8. We're watching this area generally right here To be honest, it looked a little bit better with the last radar swipe, but sometimes a rotation like this will kind of ebb and flow. I'll switch over to our live storm tracker Doppler radar, and you can see exactly what we're talking about. It's a little bit more vibrant on our radar screen. This is to the north of the Quebec community, and like I said, northeast of the Tyndall community, trailing to the north and east. I'll zoom out just a tad. You can see the Bear Lake Road east, and here's West Bear Lake Road. So again, if those sound familiar to you, you need to be in your safe place. Here's Waverly on the far left-hand side of your screen, and you can see the Talabina communities and some of these areas as you move into northern sections of Madison Parish and into southern East Carroll Parish as well. So this is a new active tornado warning. Now, at last count, have 3, 2 of them for Drew County. Those storms are moving east and out of our area, and then the new tornado warning that includes a good chunk of Madison Parish. Does not include Tallulah, but you folks probably want to keep an eye on these storms nonetheless as they continue off to the northeast. So that severe thunderstorm warning area, essentially most of it has been replaced with the tornado warning. Interest north of Tallulah along Highway 65, especially as you move into East Carroll Parish, need to keep a close eye on this storm. We'll get back to it in just a minute. For folks on the live feeds and things of that nature that are going, stick with this storm. We really want to see that one. I understand, but we've got multiple tornado warnings over the region, so we don't want to spend too much time on any one particular storm. I can also now safely say, now that we bring attention to it, that both of these tornadic circulations have exited Drew County. So when we get a new update from the National Weather Service, Drew County is probably going to be trimmed away from both of these existing tornado warnings. One will be allowed to expire. That one goes until 7:15. This one goes until 8, and I would expect Drew County to be trimmed out of that here in the short term. Chico County now, east central sections of Chico County, Lake Village and points eastward along Highway 82 as you move toward Greenville. This is a new severe thunderstorm warning. I know it says tornado warning, but that was pointed to that one here. This is a new severe thunderstorm warning for adjacent counties: Washington County, Mississippi, which is where Greenville is, and Chico County, which is in our viewing area right along the Mississippi River. Again, still seeing those reds and greens combined together, which creates the concern for a possible developing tornado. I'm not saying that one has formed, but that the possibility is there as that storm continues off to the north and east. And again, can't stress enough that these storms are moving rapidly, 55, 60 miles per hour in some instances, as we were just discussing. So as we kind of go back and forth between swipe after swipe after swipe on the radar screen, each one looks a little different with every go-round. So there's our active Madison Parish tornado warning. This is the Madison East Carroll Parish line. So again, I would think in the next 5 to 10 minutes, this storm will move into southern sections of East Carroll Parish. Make sure that you stay sheltered. We've given you a lot of lead time now, especially for the folks in East Carroll Parish. You're getting a good 5, 10, 15 minutes of lead time. We'd love to give you more, but with the way these storms are developing, just kind of being not necessarily reactionary, trying to be as proactive as possible, but sometimes in this kind of environment, conditions change rapidly, and that's what's really been happening over the last hour or so as we've seen these storms start exhibiting signs of rotation to the point that tornado warnings need to be issued. A lot of these storms have been rotating all day, but they just haven't been rotating strongly enough and consistently enough to warrant those tornado warnings. So things start changing as we go deeper into the evening, and the atmosphere becomes, it was quite viable for severe thunderstorms earlier. I would say that the window of opportunity for severe weather, at least in our area, will start to close, and we're already seeing some areas back to the west cleared from the the tornado watches. So a little bit of good news there. We are starting to see the severe threat press eastward. Should move out of the region, I would think, in the next 2 or 3 hours. The tornado watch that's currently in effect to the Mississippi Valley goes until 10 o'clock. We'll obviously continue to follow all of that as well. This, as of now, is really the only active tornado warning in our viewing area. I know that at the bottom of your screen, you're probably still seeing the Drew County tornado warning, but that storm has started to trail off to the north and east. Highlighting highlighting the other severe thunderstorm warnings in our area. A storm south of Columbia, in and around Gina, continues to trail off to the north and east. This is actually north of Gina. It's now east of 165. You can see Ala and Clarks, and the bulk of this storm has now crawled east of 165 along and north of Highway 84, and will continue to trail off to the north and east as well. Severe thunderstorm warning in effect for LaSalle Parish till 7:45. Got about another half hour there. Across north central Louisiana, a larger severe thunderstorm warning for a storm that is now kind of east of Ruston, moving toward the Downsville and Shudrint areas, and now east of Shudrint, so it'll be headed toward Calhoun, far northwestern reaches of Ouachita Parish, and into southern sections of Union Parish. I would say the southern kind of flank of this storm is probably the most concerning at this point. You're probably getting quite a bit of lightning out to the west as you look from Monroe and West Monroe, and again, it looks like our radar is actually in a calibration mode, so we'll let it do its thing for a second. And you can see areas, perhaps a little bit of a concerning area of rotation. This is basically, for all intents and purposes, along our immediate line, our front, if you will, or our broken line of thunderstorms. So back out to the west, as you move toward Arcadia and a lot of those regions, I would expect the severe threat to start to decrease here in the short term. Not really seeing a lot of rotation from the live storm tracker Doppler radar in regards to this storm, but it is obviously something worth watching as it moves into portions of Ouachita and Union parishes. Back to our tornado warned storm in now far northern reaches of Madison Parish and into southern parts of East Carroll Parish. Still see those reds and greens combined together, which is where we are obviously concerned for a developing or a tornado that has developed. I'll go down to kind of road level, if you will. Now north of Highway 80, you can see Stockland Road west. And you can still see the Bear Lake Road area. This is West Bear Lake Road, East Bear Lake Road, and this is our concerning area for a potential tornado as it now moves along Stockland Road. This is, again, moving toward the Talabina and Omega communities as you move toward the far northern extents of Madison Parish and into southern sections of East Carroll Parish. Again, interest along Highway 65, not 165, but 65. Right along the Mississippi River. You can see the highway as it moves from Tallulah to the north. Interests in southern sections of East Carroll Parish need to keep an eye on this storm. I know it says Issaquah County, Mississippi. It does include adjacent sections of Mississippi, but right now our focus, East Carroll and Madison parishes until 8 p.m. Go ahead, Alex.
I know the storm in Gina or around Gina does not have a tornado warning, but it does have some rather impressive shear parameters and shear production. And when we look at that on the Fort Johnson radar and look at velocity, there are actually two areas where those reds and greens are starting to mix at the bottom of the polygon, which is further off towards the west, to the west of Gina, and then the original area of concern, which is now at the top portion, the northeastern section of that polygon, and we just got a new radar scan there, and they are still prevalent. They are still mixing with those reds and greens. So even though it may potentially be a little bit higher in the atmosphere with how the radar beam is being pointed, it should be noted that there are areas of rotation that are not under a tornado warning as of this time. But again, as aforementioned, the main concern is in that East Carroll and Madison Parish tornado warning. And the best view right now to see that would be on Jackson's radar, and it's just north of Tallulah now and just west off of 65. Again, that is not 165, that is just plain 65 northeast of Tallulah, and it had just crossed 80. A few areas that could be that could have street names. That is near Omega, Stockland Road West, Givens Road, Bear Lake Road, Talabina, and Parish Line Road, as well as Roosevelt, that community towards the northeast, because that is the direction that this system as a whole is beginning to move, or has moved for the most part of the day. So if you're along 65 in East Carroll Parish, you do have a lot of lead time near I believe that's Bomber or Boomer, Roosevelt, Parker Road, Grassy Lake Road. Those all sound familiar to you. Start calling people, make sure that they're aware of what's happening, because it is becoming later in the evening. It's about 7:14 right now, and this warning goes out until 8 p.m. Folks are starting to get ready to tuck in for the night, and they may not be aware of what's happening. So again, that is for East Carroll Parish and further south, just north of Tallulah.
All right, thanks, Alex. Again, yeah, that storm's going to be moving into southern sections of East Carroll Parish in the short term. So again, we've given you a lot of lead time. This again does not include Tallulah or Lake Providence, but it includes a lot of area along 65 sandwiched in between those two towns. So if you're in the path of those storms, obviously make sure that you're exercising your tornado precautions, that you're in your safe place, and also zooming back out across the region as we follow that tornado warning. I also want to update folks on the severe thunderstorm warning that included Washita Parish and into Union and Lincoln parishes. That severe thunderstorm warning actually canceled early. The storm has apparently weakened below severe limits, no longer capable of producing those 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts and hail, but obviously the main line of storms will continue eastward. So on that reset, as we continue to follow the storm as it moves toward the Mississippi River Valley, I also want to draw attention to and point out the fact that this right here is the main line, if you will, of storms. So as these surge eastward, there will be damaging wind and tornado potential within that line, anything out ahead of the line, but behind the line, the severe weather threat is over. Cold fronts moving through. In fact, there's a number of counties and parishes in southwestern Arkansas, northwestern Louisiana, and into the Ark-La-Miss region, including Columbia County, Washita County, I believe Calhoun County. Those are all areas that have been trimmed away from the existing tornado watch. So for folks in Camden and Magnolia and some of those surrounding areas, that severe weather threat has ended for your region. As you move toward El Dorado, I know the rain is wrapping up. Generally speaking, a good chunk of Union County is now done with the severe weather threat. Still some pretty menacing storms moving through the Washita River Valley, so that will obviously need to be monitored. So let's go back to our tornado warned storm right along Highway 65, and as we stressed earlier, if you're trying to visually detect a tornado, you're probably going to be too late. This thing's wrapped in rainfall. It would be virtually impossible to see until there were seconds to take cover, so we just urge you to be sheltered. This is the Mississippi River Valley here, and generally our coverage area, if you will, ends at the Mississippi River, so this storm will be crossing out of our viewing area probably in the next 10 to 15 minutes. If we can skirt through the next 20 minutes or so without a new tornado warning, obviously we'll send you back to your programming then, and we'll end our live streams, but still a situation that will have to be monitored at least over the next couple of hours. Again, not only the tornado warned storm, but additional severe thunderstorm warned storms back to the west as all of this advances eastward relatively rapidly now. This line has kind of picked up the pace and is moving a little bit faster. So with the new radar scan, let's go right back in along Highway 65. Again, this is south of the Roosevelt community, but Roosevelt, you are in this tornado warning, so make sure that you're sheltered. The Sonheimer community and folks right along Highway 65. Again, Highway 65 moves off to the north and will move through Lake Providence, but Lake Providence is not currently included in this tornado warning. I'll also say on this note that you can see the Levee Road area. These are areas that were impacted by a tornado a couple of years ago that in the same severe weather event with the Rolling Fork tornado in adjacent Mississippi. And to be honest with you, we were looking at a lot of the weather data that was unfolded today, our upper air soundings, the weather balloons and things like that. And the atmosphere today was very similar to that particular Rolling Fork tornado day. I'm not going to go back into the days and the years and all that stuff, but several years ago. And so again, it kind of drives the point home that folks along the Mississippi Valley probably had the most favorable environment to bring severe weather into these regions. And I believe the Levee Road area and some of these surrounding areas near Talabina and points eastward were essentially impacted by two different tornadoes within as I remember, maybe a month or two. It was two relatively immediate tornadoes along this area in far northeastern sections of Madison Parish. So again, for a lot of our viewers that are watching this in southeastern sections of East Carroll Parish and far northeastern Madison Parish, this shouldn't be a surprise to you. We deal with severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings quite frequently. And so just want you in your safe place as this storm starts to approach the Mississippi Valley over the next little bit. Alex?
Although we do have this tornado warning, the entire line as a whole also has the potential to produce damaging wind gusts up to 40 miles per hour in some locations that have been talked about by the National Weather Service of Shreveport. And so that is one of our few concerns as of this time. So again, not only are we tracking this tornado warning that is just north of Tallulah, and again, the National Weather Service of Jackson's radar has the best advantage to see it, which is now crossing 65. This is not 165, it is just 65. And this is moving northeastward at, again, 55 miles per hour. It's a quick moving storm. That's why these boxes that have been issued are so large. And the areas off towards the top portion of that box will have the greatest advantage and the most lead time. But that is what we are seeing across not just, again, the eastern parishes and counties of the Ark-La-Miss, but really the entire system has picked up the pace in the past few hours, really since about 5 o'clock this evening. We've seen a quickening pace of this entire system. So as we draw your attention specifically to this tornado warning, keep in mind it is exiting the area. It's in East Carroll Parish now, and that's until 8 p.m. So it is now 7:21. It will likely exit East Carroll Parish within the next 20-30 minutes if it keeps up the same pace, and it will be out of our viewing area. But this is not the only system and area that we're tracking, also the one towards the south. It should be noted that although the area is less favorable for tornadic development, just north of Gina, it does have a rotation there, but as it continues to move off towards the east and northeast closer to the Mississippi River, it will likely enter a better and more favorable environment. So that's why we're keeping an eye so closely on this severe thunderstorm warning in Gina and LaSalle Parish. That goes out until 7:45 p.m. Again, another fairly large severe thunderstorm warning. So if you are towards the eastern side of that, you have plenty of time to treat it like a tornado warning and get in your safe place. But again, we have the entire system to look at, but the main concern will continue to be the system and cell just north of Tallulah now. It is crossing the 65 road, and eventually it will cross the Mississippi River and out of our area, and then it becomes an issue for our friends just across the river into Mississippi. So think ahead. If you have anybody that lives right across the Mississippi River, give them a call. Make sure that they are aware of what's happening, because this is ahead of the main line of storms. If you are seeing this now, you have the storms that come after it as well that we're keeping an eye on for a damaging wind threat, which those warnings typically get triggered by potential winds up to 58 miles per hour, which is in round up to 60, but we've seen the potential for up to 40 in some locations, and that can be damaging in itself. You should not be driving. You should be pulling over if you're in a severe thunderstorm warning, or especially a tornado warning, not under overpasses or bridges. And if you are issued a warning, you need to think about where you are in relation to windows and how much material is between you and outside. You need to put as much of that between you and outside as possible. Any exterior walls you do not want to be near. And again, just to zoom in further on the exact location of this area of rotation, it looks to have passed the Parish Line Road and is now east of Roosevelt. So within the next radar scan, it will likely be crossing the river and out of East Carroll Parish as of that time. Again, that warning goes out until 8 p.m. It is now 7:23 p.m. and we will continue to track that as it moves out of the Ark-La-Miss area. That is our only tornado warning that we have for the entire Ark-La-Miss as of this time. But of course, we're keeping an eye on the severe thunderstorm warning towards the south in LaSalle Parish until 7:45 p.m.
And on that note, Alex, as we take a closer look at what's going on across the region, kind of a broader scope, as our tornado-warned storm starts to exit the viewing area, I also want to drive attention to the fact of the line of what is considered non-severe thunderstorms that are moving toward the West Monroe area through Farmerville. They've already cleared Ruston. There's no severe thunderstorm warnings out with these currently. But again, not every storm by definition will be severe. That doesn't mean that it won't be strong or that it won't be impactful. I wouldn't be surprised to see some 40 or 45 mile an hour wind gusts easily with these storms, and a lot of heavy rainfall, maybe some small hail. The tornado threat is low but not zero with these areas as well. One thing that we're probably noticing right now, and you're not, but we are, is that winds really have been out of the south and at times even out of the south-southwest ahead of this main line, which really cuts down on how much what we call directional shear we have. If these winds were more southeasterly, it creates more of that directional wind shear at the surface, meaning that right at ground level winds are out of the southeast, you move up a little bit, they're out of the south, you move up a little bit more, they're out of the southwest, you move up a little bit more, they're even more out of the west, and you have that twisting of the winds as you move higher in altitude. Today, we've seen a lot of these storms become a lot of the surface winds become more southerly or south-southwesterly, which makes what we call a unidirectional flow. It doesn't mean the tornado threat's zero, it just kind of tampers it down a little bit, and it continues to maintain the damaging wind potential, especially along the main segment. Out ahead of the main line, these areas where we've seen the supercell structures at times have potentially the more favorable environment for tornadoes. I would also venture to say that even that environment for tornadoes is starting to move farther eastward as well. So we're kind of seeing the last hurrah of any prefrontal cells that can develop ahead of the main line. Eventually this line that's moving now relatively quickly will pick up, barrel through the area. If there's anything left over, it kind of sweeps it out, kind of like a squeegee in the atmosphere, and everything will clear out over the next couple of hours as this last final line of storms moves off to the east. So, and they are moving relatively quickly, but for folks, and I know that the crew of Janus Parade has now been hours gone, but I just want to stress for folks that tend to hang out, there's a lot of RVs and recreational vehicles and fifth wheels and folks like that that tend to camp out along the parade route, not only the days prior, but the day after. Obviously a lot of festivities and a lot of fun to be had, but a lot of folks still along the parade route, I would assume, as is typically the case with most of our crew of Janus Parades and a lot of our Mardi Gras festivities. So make sure that folks get that phone call, a text message, make sure that they're receiving their alerts on their phone. But the other kicker to that is this line, as it moves into western Ouachita Parish and into Ouachita Parish, doesn't have any severe thunderstorm warnings with it currently. So you may not get as many alerts on your phone as you typically would. So just want to urge that as we more than likely start to wrap up our programming, or at least our local coverage here in the short term as our tornado warned storm moves off to the east. Again, how we do things here, we join you on air for tornado warned storms, for severe thunderstorm warnings. We often, 99 times out of 100, typically don't join you for strictly severe thunderstorm warnings. If we did that for every severe thunderstorm warning, we'd be on the air even more than we are. And to be honest with you, severe thunderstorms, you just stay inside, sheltered, away from windows. That's the best thing you can do for those. Go ahead, Alex.
Just to hit home further that you should treat severe thunderstorm warnings just as seriously as you would a tornado warning. The severe thunderstorm warning that was near Greenville, which is near Lake Providence, it actually had a confirmed reported gust of 59 miles per hour. So that is just 1 mile per hour slower than the maximum estimated wind gust in that severe thunderstorm warning.
Yeah, and 59 miles an hour is severe, because the technical terminology is 58 miles an hour or stronger is considered a severe wind gust. So that checks out.
And so again, if you are issued a severe thunderstorm warning, take it seriously, because these storms are showing the potential to produce a severe wind gust as such as 59 miles per hour. So you should not also be near windows, exterior walls, just for your safety. And also, if you know anyone traveling within that area, you may want to at least give them a call, make them pull over off the side of the road. That is not something you'd want to be on the road, especially on major roadways next to larger vehicles, high profile vehicles. That is a very dangerous to drive next to, and also it's hard to see outside with how abundant the rainfall is occurring right now. So we have a lot of other severe weather parameters to discuss besides the tornado warning that is exiting our viewing area as of this time. Jared?
Yeah, and so along that note, again, just kind of want to drive the point home that these are wind-driven storms. It's a very dynamic environment in place, meaning that there's strong winds at the surface, there's strong winds aloft, and so most of these storm systems, when we say a wind-driven line, that's to be expected, and for strong gusty winds to be associated with these storms as they move off to the east. Our circulation has essentially moved into adjacent sections of Issaquah County and Mississippi and moved out of our viewing area. So at this time, feel pretty comfortable sending folks back to their regularly scheduled programming. Our live stream on social media will also end. If a new warning is issued, obviously we'll join you back on air and online for as long as that warning is in effect. Even our severe thunderstorm warning to the south has started to be trimmed and kind of limited in its overall scope. Again, some strong gusty winds, maybe 40, 45, maybe even 50 miles an hour with some of the stronger storms that are moving into Ouachita Parish, but no active warnings with those as we speak, though that could still change. We'll keep you updated. Tornado watch still remains in effect until 10 o'clock tonight for the eastern half of our viewing area. Severe weather threat behind this main line: Ruston, El Dorado, Camden, Columbia, stretching back Columbia, Arkansas, not Columbia, Columbia County, Arkansas, not Columbia and Louisiana, Homer, all these areas to the west now seeing their severe weather threat over. Mainly just ahead and along that main line is our concerns over the next couple of hours. Stay tuned to NBC 10 and Fox 14. We'll keep you updated with the latest as we go through the rest of the evening.